Hi, friend. I am super pumped to talk to you about yoga teacher training, weekend number 5. Can't believe that it's already weekend number 5. That means that the next weekend I go is weekend number 6, and that means I'm halfway done. Cannot believe that. So, anyways, I'm going to focus on weekend number 5, and we learned so much. I even had to miss the Friday session. I'm going to be making that up later this week, but I missed the Friday session, and even with the Saturday and Sunday session, I still learned so much. So first things first, we learned about Ayurveda and talked about all the doshas and all that fun stuff and how eating and sleeping and all of that kind of comes into play. And I had taken the What's My Dosha quiz before, just in conversation, started learning about it a few months ago. Took it, so I walked in knowing that I am a Vata, but I learned so much more through the person that came in and spoke to us. Her name is Lisa, and she was just a blast to listen to. She was so much fun. And so I learned a ton during that session. And the really interesting thing that I took away from it was how interesting it is that we as humans like to identify with something that sounds like us. So when she was talking about Vatas being cold, people are like, oh my gosh, I'm always cold. Or Kappa's never wanting to miss a meal and just saying like, I'll never miss a meal. People were like, oh, that's so me. And Pitta's saying like, I want to go into class and I'm going to be done and I don't even want to go to Shavasana or whatever it is because I'm just so busy. And people are like, oh, that's me. It was just really interesting to see how we want to identify with certain things, and we identify with the things that are just like us. And it's just whether we're excited about it or we're like, oh, that's me. We identify with it, and it was just really fun to watch in a room full of people that were identifying with different things and how strong we feel that pull. And then, so for the asana part, we were learning about forward folds and twist. First of all, I don't think I'll ever say the Sanskrit name for any of the twists because they're all saints and sages' names, and they're incredibly difficult to say. So kudos to everyone who actually uses those names in your classes because they're really difficult and super close to being really similar to one another. So it was very hard for me to wrap my head around which was which because I couldn't fully grasp all of them. So one of those I'm going to have to really study are the twist. And super hard to cue, by the way. So yoga teachers, kudos to you if you're cueing people into twist because it was hard. We did some practice teaching and it was hard. That's all I have to say. I'm just going to have to keep practicing. And so on the foreign fold side, this is very interesting for me. So and even before I even go into that, holy moly, downward dog and boat pose, forward fold. Didn't know that. Didn't even think about it. Now that I know I have a better understanding of what a forward fold is, and I understand the details of its flexion of the spine, it makes complete sense of why those would be forward folds, but I would have never thought about that before. So it was a very interesting moment for me and several other people in the class. So that was fun that I was not the only one that thought, what the heck? That's a forward fold? So that was really interesting. But for me personally, so we're starting to learn about forward folds, and I'm sitting there. And when I say sitting, I'm sitting on my mat with my legs extended in front of me straight, and I'm sitting there and I am uncomfortable as all get out. I mean, there is an immense amount of pressure in my mid back. And I'm kind of looking around thinking everyone's just sitting like it's the most comfortable position they've ever been in. And I'm in pain. What the heck? And so I thought, you know what? No time like the present. If there is a room full of very smart people who can probably tell me, why this is so uncomfortable for me because I've never really been comfortable in this position that I can remember. I'm sure as a kid I was, but that I could remember. So I raise my hand, and there I am in the middle of the classroom saying, I am super uncomfortable. There's a section of my back, there's all this pressure. And so we start looking at my back, and we start, I prop myself up a little bit on blankets, so I'm kind of at an angle, and it gets a little bit better. And then I go home and I think about it a little bit more, and I'm doing some things, and I come back the next day and we talk about this. I think I figured it out. So I ask, and sure enough, this is the thing. I have taken away my lumbar curve. I don't know why. I don't know why I did this. But somehow I have, and maybe if I got an x-ray, there's actually a little bit of a curve, but I'm rounding it at the base of at the lumbar where there's no curve. It's completely flat. And so you can actually see it, feel it, it's there. There's not a curve. And so that is creating that pressure just above it, and it's just so uncomfortable. Well, the answer to this is I have to stick out my butt. This is the weirdest thing to me. And I think that I have just in my head not wanted to stick out my butt. So I've actually tilted my pelvis I'm doing it backwards now, but it's under. So my sacrum is tilted under, and I need to tilt it forward to actually have a neutral spine. So I've got a lot of work to do because now I have to adjust a habit that I have. But the good news is I was not the only person that dealt with this. That's not good news. I'm not happy other people are dealing with this, but it made me feel like I'm not the only person. And there was several of the teachers said, we aren't set up for success with this. We sit in chairs all day that really don't position us well. We sit at computers too much. I'm sitting at one right now. There's just things that in our everyday life that if we're not thinking of it in a conscious way, we're going to round that part of our back. So because I am not the only person in the class that dealt with this, one of my friends and I are going to text each other every day, and see if we are being aware and conscious and trying to retrain our back to actually have that lumbar curve. So, learned a huge lesson this weekend for sure, especially for my personal practice. It's going to be better, my daily life, and digestion. Didn't know that lumbar curve could impact digestion. So there's another perk. The other thing that really happened, and that brings me to the word of the weekend, which is vulnerability. And how sweet is vulnerability? I am just amazed at the people that I get to share this space with. And I think I'll say this every single weekend, that I am just so blessed to be sitting in a room of people who are willing to share and to just be open about things. And so even me just sharing about my back, maybe no one thinks of that as being vulnerable, but I was it could have been people could have laughed at me. I don't know. It could have happened. And so even just something like that just opens the door to vulnerability. And so that was on the physical side, but what I witnessed this weekend was just the amazing thing of the 5 weekends we've spent together. The door has been opened for vulnerability, and it was really people started walking through that door this weekend, and it was very sweet to see. There were some things that came up that I would have just never thought about, but people shared things about eating disorders, and we talked about boundaries and how people's personal relationships have been affected by boundaries, whether positive or negative. And on that note, I'm super pumped. We started talking about boundaries in this tiny little bit of a way, and one of the lead teachers says, we have a whole lesson on boundaries. I am super pumped about that lesson, counting down the days. Can't wait to talk about that because I have tried to learn about boundaries my entire life, and I can't wait to learn more. As I've put some in place for business, I have just noticed a huge change in things, and so to do that on a personal level, I'm really excited to learn about that and to learn it in context of being a yoga teacher, how cool is that it's in my yoga teacher training? Like, how cool is that? I don't know if it's in every yoga teacher training, but gosh, I hope it is, because that's just truly amazing that we get to talk about that, how to set them, how to enforce them maybe, and how it's not our responsibility how other people take boundaries. So keep an eye out for that one, because I'm sure that's going to be the longest post I have, because I'm really excited about it. But people really talked about things and they really opened up. I mean, it was just an incredible weekend for that. And it's their personal story. And of course it stays in the room. I'm not going to share any of those stories, but it just made me really, really appreciate the space that I am honored to sit in. And if you are one of the students in that class, just thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such an awesome fellow student, because I just feel so incredible in that space, because you guys have just made it so awesome. And it's just been a lot of fun to be in that space and just witness the transformation that's been happening. So those are the 3 really big takeaways that I have. I'm excited to make up my Friday lesson later this week, but it was an awesome weekend. Really looking forward to the next one. I've got 2 weeks or 1 week in between. So looking forward to the next one. Can't wait to hear what you think about this one and all about vulnerability. And if you're just watching this and you were in yoga teacher training and had that moment where like the light bulb hit with something of your posture, or maybe someone was really vulnerable in your class and you want to share that with me, I would love to hear about it. So be sure to reach out in whichever way you feel like you would like to, on Instagram, email, comment on the blog, whatever floats your boat. But I look forward to talking to you and updating you on the next one. So until next time, have a fabulous day, my friend. Bye.